I call to order the Independence Township Board of Trustees regular meeting for August 11, 2026 at 6 p.m. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Supervisor File.
Here.
Clerk Newbeck here. Treasurer Brown.
Here.
Trustee Hayward.
Here.
Trustee Marco.
Here.
Trustee Nalamatu. Here. And Trustee Tedder.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent, our attorney's not here though. Okay,
Yes, in the back.
okay, sorry. Can I get the motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, agenda's approved. Next, we have the board and public announcements. These are for events that are coming up. If you are going to talk about one, please come up to the microphone. You will have, give your name and address. You will have 5 minutes. I will let you know when you reach the 4-minute mark so you can wrap it up. At this point in time, is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a comment about an upcoming event? Nope. Okay. Is there anybody, doesn't look like there's anybody online. No? Okay, good. Then I'll bring it up to the board. Does anybody, board member, have any public comments, announcements, I mean, sorry. Clerk Newbeck.
On behalf of the Independence Township Board of Trustees, I'd like to recognize the passing of Dale Stewart, former township trustee and supervisor, who passed away on August 4th at the age of 83. Mr. Stewart dedicated many years to serving Independence Township. He served as a township trustee from 1980 to 1988. He served on the Zoning Board of Appeals and was elected township supervisor in 1992, serving 3 terms through 2004. During his years of service, he helped guide the township through a significant period of growth and development and contributed to many important initiatives that helped shape the community we know today. The Board of Trustees extends its sincere condolences to his wife, Deborah, his family, friends, and to all of those who knew and worked with him. We are grateful for Mr. Stewart's many years of dedicated public service and for the lasting contributions he made to Independence Township and its residents. And I have one more.
Okay.
Also want to thank everyone who came out and voted. We've had a couple meetings since the election. On August 4th, I wanted to give you a couple stats. Out of our 31,070 registered voters, we had 4,673 that showed up at a precinct. Absentee voters totaled 6,418. Early voters, we had 705, so that was a total of 11,796 voters, which was 37%, almost 38% of our registered voters. I further want to thank all of the township employees and staff my staff that assisted, as they always do, to help us in having successful elections in Independence Township, and I'm very thankful for all of them. And that's all I have.
Great. Any other board members? Is that a hand? Yes.
Yeah, I
Trustee
just,
Dart.
too, would just like to honor the life and legacy of Dale Stewart. Grew up with his daughters. I was particularly close friends with one of them. They had a beautiful service for him on Saturday. Many family members shared some beautiful stories of his life. He was certainly a mentor to many of us youngsters, high schoolers that even back then looked perhaps at public service in the future. So again, my heart condolences go out to the family. And I just want to thank Clerk Newbeck for a very successful election. Thank you for all that you and your team do.
Thank you.
Any other? Nope, okay, I will close public announcements. Next, I will open it up for public comments. Public comments are for, at this stage, for anything that is not on the agenda that's forthcoming. So if you have any public comments about anything other than what's on the agenda, please come up to the center mic, give your name, address, and again, the same rules apply. You have 5 minutes. I will let you know when you reach the 4-minute mark so you can wrap it up. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Okay. Well, how about online? No? Okay, I will close public comments for the audience. Anybody, any board members? Nope. Okay. Next, we're going to go to the public hearing, which we don't have any. The next thing on the item is a presentation report, and that is for me. Normally, we go through and do a lot of these type of budget reports. We put them in the packet, and people just read them. I think in light of a lot of stuff that's going on, it probably made a little bit more sense to talk a little bit more about what's going on from a budget standpoint. So I'm going to jump over here and go through it pretty quickly. I need my caffeine. Not sure why it's not showing up on that TV over there, but we can go with this one here. Just to be clear with the board, this meeting is the traditional Board of Trustees meeting, so I consider this presentation in the format of it to be our traditional format where I just come up and give the presentation and we're not taking questions of that from the audience. So I think that's the end of it, isn't it? Yeah, sorry, that was the end of it. So again, tonight I would like to go through with the board to give them a little bit of an update for how the first 6 months of the year have gone through. In light of what happened in August with the police renewal, I also went through and took that into consideration when we're looking at some of the budget going forward. So it's a little bit of a history lesson and to get the board to kind of understand what the budgeting department and the supervisor's office is going to be doing looking forward between now and the end of the year. Right now, I think it's important to understand that the township right now has a very strong operating position. We are functioning very well on that standpoint. We're under budget on things going forward. However, that is not something that we can rest our laurels on. We do have a very, very important ballot coming up in November. The outcome of it will have a huge impact financially, one way or the other, on the budget. So, part of the things that we're going to be looking at and talk about here over the next 5-10 minutes is making sure that we keep that in mind as we go forward. The biggest risk to the budget, the operating budget, would be if the police millage fails in November. And just as a reminder, I know we spent quite a bit of time on this last night, that this is the current police millage has expired. So the one that's coming up in November is for a new ballot. Regardless of whether the ballot passes or not, we're going to still have to figure out some sort of cost structure and service from the law enforcement. Right now, when this was done, 50% of the year was over. We have, from the general fund expenditure usage, we have brought in close to 9.4. We spent 4.1, so we're 44% of the total expenditure, so we're under budget right now. I do want to put a little bit of a cautionary on that. It says that we're good by $688,000. We are under budget. That is 100% true. There are some seasonal expenses, though, that need to be taken into consideration, and what I mean by that is that we may have collected revenue in advance of when the money would actually be spent. So that could happen in the third or fourth quarter. So that number could be impacted. But even with our projections, we're looking at it being a minor impact to that number. At this point in time, we are sitting very strong in our general fund. Thankfully, we have $17.6 million sitting there. That money, again, is designated for any sort of opportunities, whether that be in CIP projects, unforeseen circumstances, much like what happened in August. We know that the police millage is designed to bring in roughly about $8 million a year to cover the contracts for the police, which are running about $8 million a year, a little bit more actually. So that money would not last very long if it came to the point where we had to rely on that fund solely. But we have been good stewards of the taxpayers' money. We are coming in under budget, and we are keeping and protecting the general fund for emergencies and opportunities. Again, 49, 50%, 40% of the budget, so doing a pretty good job there. Second discipline is producing a positive mid-year. So, again, I would just want to reemphasize again that the revenue is exceeding expenditures. I know that there's been a lot of comments around the August vote saying we need to budget our money, we need to tighten our belts, we need to do all the things that our residents are unfortunately having to do in today's economy. I want to make sure that we understand, and the board understands clearly that this year it was a result of a budget reduction from last year. So in '25, we tightened our belts, we brought down the budget by almost 25%, still came in under budget on that one by about $835,000. This year, we again did not increase the budget. We did not increase our operating tax millage. We left that the same, and we are coming in, right now projected to come in under budget again for this year. We also received, as we all know, from the auditing firm for the county, we got our best audit that I think we've had maybe ever. Everything was positive on all across the board. What's changing with August? August proposal failed. We all know that, and we have to be respectful of the fact that the residents, I think, have some angst. Maybe it's millage exhaustion. Maybe it's just stress about the current economy. But we do need to make sure that we're keeping that in our focus when we talk about how we're going to deal with things going forward. The outcome in November is material. And what I mean by material, meaning that it can have a huge impact one way or the other on what happens with the budget and how we finish out for the year. We're talking somewhere in the neighborhood over a 2-year period of time of about $17, $18 million, which would exceed actually our general fund capabilities. We do have some money in the police millage to help offset that, but it is a dramatic impact one way or the other to us. I do believe that one thing that we learned last night, or at least I can say I learned last night, was that the residents are not anti-police, they're anti-wastefulness. They want to make sure that the dollars that they're sending are being properly utilized and they're not going to frivolous things. I believe that with the budget cuts we've had and the fact that we're still operating under budget shows and hopefully demonstrates to the residents that we are operating within our limits and actually we're coming in under those. The general fund still needs to be protected, I believe, because not only did we not anticipate a year and a half ago the millage or the contract increase with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department through the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, but there are other things that could just as easily pop up that could cause us to hit that fund hard. We need to protect and cherish that general fund for that purpose. Also knowing that we have several departments that are dependent on that general fund to be able to operate. And there are a couple departments here that do not have the opportunity to generate revenue or generate it at a level that makes it a wash between revenue and expenses, and that's being covered by the general fund, which is covered through the property taxes. So again, just because we have a strong moment today doesn't mean necessarily that all the pressure's off, because it's not. There is a very complicated domino. When I talk to the department heads, I talk about the effect of dominoes. If you knock over this domino and you're in the size of a gym, where's the dominoes? What other dominoes are going to fall when you knock over that one? That is the complexity of this millage, and this is the complexity of the impact of this cost onto the general fund. It will have a far-reaching impact on just about every department. Obviously, if the millage goes through, last night we voted to go through and ask for a 3.2 millage pass. Again, that was to replace the expiring millage with an increase to cover the cost that the county raised the contracts by, and also with the anticipated cost of the contracts going beyond the life of the contract. I think it's important to remember that we are in a contract with the county. And so if the millage doesn't pass in November, that doesn't mean we just get to wipe our hands and say no police. We still have a financial obligation to the county via that contract. So if it goes through with the 3.2, I think we have a pretty safe, smooth runway. At the end of 4 years, we should be basically right where we are today financially. So from that standpoint, it was not intended to increase the amount of the cushion. It was just to maintain and cover the costs. If the millage does not go through, as I alluded to a few minutes ago, It will have a far-reaching spider effect into multiple different departments, and we're going to have a much more challenging time of trying to determine what we're going to cut, because ultimately that's what it's going to lead to. Where are we going to cut? Are we going to cut services in just the police department and the service we get to there? Are we going to cut services that we find within the departments within the township's office? Combination of the two most likely is what would happen. Again, just to keep going through this, because I believe that one of the things that the residents asked us last night was to try to keep getting some information out there and knowledge out there and data so that they can make an informed decision one way or the other how they want to go. Again, GF stands for the general fund. If the 3.2 scenario passes, the general fund doesn't get hit. And we can maintain our 20% reserve. If it doesn't, then we have to start dedicating reserves and dipping hard into the general fund in order to be able to cover things. And we're going to have to start looking at cutting across the board. Obviously, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it is extremely important that the impact of this particular financial millage will have on the overall budget. So one of the things that the budget department's going to be doing is that we're going to be looking at these different options and whatever else the board decides to come up with as far as means to cover things. We are going to be looking at both types of scenarios. If the millage passes, what does that budget look like? If the millage does not pass, what does that budget look like? So we will be functioning and getting together for the board, both scenarios played out. And again, that's kind of what we're just saying here. We're going to keep protecting what we have. Control the discretionary spending. You know, it's not that we've been going hog wild, obviously, because for the last 2 years, or at least the last 18, 24 months, we have been maintaining and keeping our expenses under the budget. And each budget year, the budget is coming down, not going up. We want to, again, cherish and protect the funds that we have to make sure that they're not going off for anything that is considered unusual or unnecessary, might be another way of putting it, and preparing for both the contingencies if it passes or if it does not pass. I believe that our job here, and when I say ours, I mean the board collectively, but definitely from the budgeting department in the supervisor's office, is to make sure that we're answering all questions regarding the millage and the budget and how it's going to be impacted. We are not, legally, we're not supposed to advocate for or against a millage. We are going to just prepare the data and have it ready for the residents if should they ask for questions on it, and hopefully be able to put out more information via multiple different channels, including, you know, town hall meetings and whatnot. And that's pretty much what we're talking about through this slide. So again, at the end, you know, my recommendation for the board direction is to accept the mid-year budget updates as a strong performance. That's great. We're doing a good job there. We should be proud of that fact. At the same token, we need to maintain a cautious commitment to any of the expenditures between now and November. The supervisor's office and the budget department will prepare the plans and the scenarios, whether it passes or does not pass, so we're not caught at a last hour, 11th hour, trying to figure out how we're going to manage things going forward. I know historically we've started the budget process now. We have started the budget process now through the departments. They're getting their budgets together for 27. Differences now is we're going to be asking them to look at it under both scenarios. If the millage doesn't pass, what would your budget look like? If it does pass, what will it look like? So we'll be operating and modeling both those together, and we will be bringing it forward to the board when it comes time for that to do it. Last year, I know we tried to get it out about 3 weeks ahead of time. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was 565 pages long, which is not very exciting, especially with the small print. There was a little bit of an offset too, which made things very difficult for board members to read. We are fixing those problems, and we will hopefully have it again to you at least a month ahead of time and a little bit easier to read. I know that Trustee Tedder didn't used to wear glasses, but he does now after reading that budget. And they continue to the resident interfacing and giving the education on it and trying to answer their questions whenever we can in whatever format there is. And that's it. bring questions back up to the board. If there are any. Yes? No? No? Okay.
I don't think so. Not tonight.
All right, so the next other thing is the carryover postponed agenda items. There aren't any. We have some consent items. First one is a request to approve the Board of Trustees' regular meeting minutes of July 21st, 2026. The second one is to request the approval of the August 4th, 2026 check run, including ACHs for $1,444,059.57, and ratify the July 16th and July 30th payroll for $422,396.75, $412,261.86. And third, request to accept Brady Lodge rental with alcohol for Saturday, September 28th, 2026. Can I get a motion, please, to accept the consent agenda as presented?
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Items removed from the consent agenda, there aren't any. So now we're going to get into the regular business. The regular business is all the things between L1 and L7. Just like the public comments, this is your opportunity in the audience to be able to come up and speak about the one we're on at that time. So for each one, 1 through 7, we will have a public comment before we get into the details of it. And if you have any questions or comments at that point in time, please come up to the mic, state your name and your address, express your comments. You have 5 minutes. I will again let you know when you hit the 4-minute mark. And please understand that while you're up there, the board does not react back with you. It's just your opportunity to express your thoughts, I guess, to us. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come up and make a public comment regarding, request to approve the first reading for a zoning ordinance map amendment parcel 08-19-3505005 and for parcel 08-19-351-066 and 08-19-351-007. And to give you a little bit of information before you come up, we have Megan here from the Carlisle Warman. She is our consultant and representing the planning department. And I'm going to let her come up and explain what this one is about. Then we'll go back and open up public comments. Sorry, Megan, I almost cut you out.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The Planning Commission initiated rezonings of these properties in November 2025 in order to align them with the plan designation of office service. These are at the northwest corner of Dixie Highway and Pine Ridge Road. And many of you may know of them as the site that Oakland County was looking to put a courthouse, and since had other plans, and so these properties have been vacant for a while. Working up from the corner, what is being proposed is for parcel 007 is being proposed to be rezoned from R2 to multiple family R2 multiple family residential to office. That designation is different because it's a small parcel, and of the office districts in the zoning ordinance, it fit with office, and the Planning Commission made that determination when looking at how to rezone these 3 properties. The next, which is 006, is a rezoning from C1 local business and R2 multiple family, so it's split zoned to office service 2, and then the property that ends with 005 is proposed to be rezoned from C4 general business to OS2 office service 2. The Planning Commission had a public hearing in December on this. At that point in time, both property owners came forward and expressed their opposition. Since that time, the county has met with representatives of the township, and then when another public hearing was held in May of 2026, they did not express any opposition to the Planning Commission. In fact, we didn't have anyone attending the public hearing. And at that time, the Planning Commission made this recommendation unanimously to the Board of Trustees. Also, because these properties are next door to an adjacent township and owned by the county, and adjacent to properties owned by the county, the county coordinating zoning committee had the responsibility to review those and make a determination. They chose to abstain from making a determination because they are one of the property owners, and their report was in your packet along with reports from Carlisle Wortman that the Planning Commission looked at during this process. As I said before, these parcels, all three are currently vacant, and they're shown in the Township Master Plan as office service in the Dixie Highway Target area in the northwest sub-area future land use map. I'd be happy to answer any questions now or later.
I'll send it out for public comments. Does anybody in the audience have any public comments on this? No? Okay. Anybody online? Excuse me, if you're going to ask any questions, you have to come up to the microphone. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to close public comments, bring it up to the board. Does any board member have any questions or comments? Trustee Morocco.
I just want to comment from the Planning Commission. This is something that the townships, over 20 years ago, we identified these parcels as you get off I-75 heading south into the township. These are the parcels on the right-hand side heading towards White Lake Road, just past where those condos are at Deer Hill Drive right there, but across the street on the right. So we had 20 years ago on the master plan, we designated these to be less down zone, so they wouldn't be heavy commercial, you know, fast food restaurants, gas stations, stuff like that, that it would be a less impactful area. We just never, I've been involved for 23 years, we just never got around to doing it. So finally we got busy with the new planning commission that's in place, and we went through the process. I think that Megan did a great job of explaining to the landowners why we would rezone their property, and that this gave them actually more flexibility to do projects that would fit better, more multifamily or less impactful, or businesses that only operate during business hours because of their adjacentness to residential. It was met originally there was a little hesitation because they didn't understand that what we were doing, and then they got on board again, and then they didn't oppose it. So there's multiple parcels in the township that just don't align with our goals and objectives, and the Planning Commission, this is the first 3 parcels that we've been able to try to get aligned. It is recommended by state law that we do align our zoning with our goals and objectives and the master plan, and I'm just happy to see that it finally is, you know, we're moving forward with getting that work done for the township, which protects us much better from developments that we wouldn't want coming here because of the way we thought we were going to develop it 50 years ago, you know, which is not our goals now. So
Okay,
hopefully
thank you.
that explains a little bit about what we're doing. Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else on the board? No? You might be getting off easy. Okay. Can I get a motion then, please?
I'll make a motion. I'll move to approve the introduction and first reading of the zoning ordinance map amendment to rezone a parcel of land located in section 19 of the township, parcel number 0819351005, rezoning from C4 general business to OS2 office service, to parcel 0819351006, rezoning from C1 local business and R2 multiple family residential to OS2 office service 2. Parcel number 0819351007, rezoning from R2 multiple family residential to O office, and schedule the second reading on the next available Board of Trustees regular meeting following the required publications.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Nalamathu?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor File?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion carried. Great. Thank you, Megan. Next on the regular business is item number 2, request to adopt resolution number 2026-015, which is participation in agreement for the clemis between Oakland County and the Independence Township. For this particular item, it's being brought forth by Derek Smith, who is the Assistant Fire Chief, and he's going to go through the clements and,
Stamper.
pardon me?
Derek Stamper.
Sorry, Derek Stamper. What did I say? Smith, sorry. Stamper.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight, the Fire Department's requesting board to adopt Resolution 2026-015 for the Clemis Participation Agreement. What Clemis is, it's Courts and Law Enforcement Management Information System, essentially connecting our data from our computer-aided dispatch system to our fire and EMS records management systems and our station alerting systems as well. Additionally, it also provides access to our archived fire records from the year 2020 and earlier than that. And I want to emphasize this is not a new service that we're asking for. We already use this as part of our daily operations. And the reason why I bring this to you is Clemis has recently transitioned from the Oakland County IT to their newly formed Clemis Authority, which is a separate entity, which requires an updated participation agreement. So with your approval tonight, we would like to move forward with the updated participation agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding that.
Give me a sec. Anyone in the public audience would like to come up and have public comments about this? No? Okay. Anybody online? No? All right, I'll close public comments and bring it up to the board. Anybody on the board have any questions or comments? You must be tired. All right. I guess I just want to be sure that there's an adjustment here, a quote for $6,238, a 5% increase. That was already budgeted before, correct?
Yes, it's been budgeted previously.
Okay. All right. All right, can I get a motion then, please?
I
Move to adopt,
Go ahead.
oh, okay. Move to adopt resolution number 2026-015 for the Clemis Participation Agreement with the Clemis Authority and authorize the appropriate township officials to execute the agreement.
Second.
Can I get a roll call, Madam Clerk, please?
Treasurer Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Nalmathu?
Yes.
Trustee Tedder?
Yes.
Supervisor File?
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, yes, motion carried.
Great. Thank you, Derek Smith.
Appreciate it. No problem.
It was your first time up here. I had to give you a little something. Yep. Number 3, regular business, request to accept 2026 Taste of Clarkson Memorandum of Understanding. For that, we have Lisa Christensen, our Parks Director.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'm here to request approval of the 2026 Memorandum of Understanding between Independence Township and the Clarkson Area Chamber of Commerce for our annual Taste of Clarkson event. Historically, you might be aware that the township, as part of this MOU, the township has received a flat rate reimbursement along with a percentage of ticket sales. The current chamber director approached us and asked if we'd be willing to look at a new partnership model and change to a single flat rate. So we spent the greater portion of this year working those details out. And we do really believe that this change will provide greater transparency and predictability and consistency for both of our organizations while more accurately reflecting the resources that are dedicated for this event. So following a review of direct and indirect costs, we've come up with a fixed annual fee as part of a one-year agreement for 2026 of $15,000. And that is what's being presented tonight in the MOU. I'd also like to point out that the Oakland County Sheriff Department services are also a part of this agreement where the chamber does pay for those services 100% for the cost incurred to run the event. I would also like to acknowledge that the chamber director and her staff are here tonight along with members of her board to show support for our longstanding partnership and the passing of this MOU. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Before we get started, does anybody in the audience have any comments regarding this? No? Please. Online? Is there anybody even online? So I can stop just going up there.
Jennifer.
It doesn't look like it. Okay, all right, so that, I'll close public comments on this item and bring it up to the board. Any board members have any questions or comments? Trustee Morocco?
Can you tell us what the township charged last year?
Yep, I keep a detailed spreadsheet of year by year. So last year's MOU, we received a $7,500 flat fee, and then we received 25% of ticket sales for a total of $21,739. So yes, I'll put that this is lower, $15,000 is lower, but it more accurately reflects the exact cost incurred by.
Right, that's where I'm getting to.
Yeah.
So, one of my questions is that, with, so they're also being affected by this ridiculous police fees that we're paying, and I know that their event is, basically, if it rains, they could lose everything, so, and make no profit for the thing. It's that fluid, so, and our contract states that it's gonna be, we're supposed to pay what we, this is our best guess of what you think the township's cost is going to be, this 15K, or is this above what our actual costs are to provide the setup, tent setup and breakdown and
No,
services?
The $15,000 is a reflection of the true cost that it will cost the Parks Department out of their budget to run the event. That would include payroll, which is the biggest expense or chunk of that $15,000, along with some pre-event planning, cross-marketing that we do for the event, and then some indirect administrative cost.
And I'm being the devil's advocate here because I'm involved with the chambers. Is there an opportunity for any of those services to be broke out from that agreement? Like if there was stuff that they could do more themselves, like is that a fluid thing or is it only this year? I wasn't part of negotiations, so I'm
Sure,
just
absolutely. So this
asking
is a one-year agreement. I don't want to speak for the chamber, but I feel very confident in our relationship, our partnership, and if there are ways for us to collaborate more or move things around, we're both willing to sit at the table and discuss and review those things.
And then finally, I would ask if it, and I guess this would be to Emily or somebody at the chamber, is because we're asking for the money in advance, a month in advance, seems like that's a big ask for an organization that doesn't have a lot of fluid cash.
Sure, so traditionally, how it usually flowed was when we would, quarter one, we'd try to have the MOU panned out, finalized, and we would receive that flat payment amount with the signing of the MOU. Then, of course, the percentage of ticket sales payment would come months after the event, after they finalized all the event expenses and the books closed on the event. So given that we spent the greater part of this year working out the terms of this agreement, going back and forth between the staff, we had legal involved, their board involved before it got to today. I mean, we're willing to work. We're a month out from the event, so we understand.
Well, that's kind of
yeah.
what I wish. We weren't a month out from the event, so that when we, if we could chime in, there'd be time to maybe make some changes. I don't know if that affects them, if they're comfortable with the 15 down, or if that's just they have no choice because we're asking for it and they're kind of in a jam.
Sure.
Or
Again,
if
and I
it
don't
could
wanna
be negotiated where it's half down, half after they actually make money, it
Sure.
just seemed like, we don't give deposits on work in the township. I don't know if it's a lot of money to the chamber, but I don't want that, I want to make sure they're not being
Yeah.
strong-armed into, because they might need operating costs to get, I know how it is to put on an event, and you need money to get to making the money, and I don't want, I just didn't want that ask to be something that made them work harder to generate
No, I
that a
understand,
month
yep.
before the event.
Yep, I understand what you're
know?
asking, and again, I don't want to speak for the chamber, but she's giving me the thumbs up, and they agreed upon the terms of this MOU. If that's something for next year, because this is only for 1 year, that we maybe want to split it up, where we receive half at time of approval of the MOU, and then that.
Not up to me,
the
I'm
half.
just throwing
Yeah,
that
I mean,
out there that.
they can definitely bring that up to us for future negotiations for next year's MOU.
Thank you, that's all
Yeah,
I
I
got.
sat in on a couple of those meetings, and that particular item never came up.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would believe if it was a big concern, they would have brought it up,
Okay.
because they did bring up other ones, but that one did not come up.
Okay.
Just so
very
you
good.
know.
Just-
And I don't think we strong-armed them at all. Not on that, maybe. It was a big switch going to that fixed instead of that variable, so. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Treasurer Brown?
Just maybe be a tweak. It has in here that we'll provide the accounting, the numbers from the sheriff's actual costs within 30 days. We might not have the bill from the sheriff's office at 30 days. It might be 35 days.
Okay.
Or a little bit more. So if that would just said that we'll provide that within 72 hours of receiving the invoice from the sheriff. We can just tweak that so we won't violate it if that happens. It shouldn't be a problem, but it certainly could be. The county sends it when they send it, and then we go through it.
Sure. Yeah, we did discuss, that came up in our conversations
Yeah.
about that
could
that
be.
window of
I'd rather-
time that we
I'd
don't have
rather
any
say
control over.
We will do our work within 72 hours of receipt from the county, and we'll make you aware.
Perfect.
Okay?
Yep.
Other questions or comments from the board? No? If not, can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve the 2026 memorandum of agreement between the Charter Township of Independence Parks, Recreation and Seniors and the Clarkson Area Chamber of Commerce for the 2026 Taste of Clarkson event, and authorize the township supervisor to execute the agreement on behalf of the township.
Support.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question on that, because he made a change. Did the motion have to be as amended, or it's just fixed the next time? I didn't think about that.
You mean the, within the window?
The 72 hours from receipt of invoice, is that, or is that just more of an understanding? I mean, does it really need to be?
I think we're fine, as long as they know.
No.
No, our intentions.
All right, next item on the agenda is L4, request to approve the Facilities and Ground Maintenance Manager's position. This is a new position that we're trying to create, and the goal here is just to create the position and have the language for the the description approved by the board. And for this, we have the director, Dave McKee.
Good evening, everyone. Before you tonight, as Supervisor just pointed out, we're looking to get approval for the Facilities and Ground Maintenance Manager position, grade classification, and authorization to post the position. Some valid questions were brought up last time we brought this to the board, and I hopefully you addressed it in the current May packet that you have right now. So to give you a quick overview, this purpose of this position is to provide stewardship over existing assets through preventive maintenance, work order management, coordination, capital maintenance planning, and timely repairs and upgrades. This position is specifically focused on protecting township investments, addressing deferred maintenance, extending asset life, and ensuring facilities remain safe, reliable, and well-maintained for public employee use. We did go, some of the questions that was brought through, we vetted this through the rate study that was done, 23, classified it, and accordingly to that program there, we did run this through Township Legal. That was another question that was brought up. This position is funded through the Department of Public Works. There's no budget amendment needed. And the reason we've had positions that's been budgeted in the Public Works that are not been filled this year, and so there is no budget amendment required whatsoever for this. Creation of this new position, essentially a DPW branch, provides a dedicated organization focused on facility asset management, improving accountability, maintaining maintenance planning, service responsiveness, and long-term preservation of township buildings and infrastructure, while allowing the operational divisions to remain focused on their core responsibilities instead of everybody taking care of their own facilities, which quite frankly is inefficient. So, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them this time.
Let's go to the audience first. Are there any questions or comments from the audience? No? Okay, I'll close public comments and bring it up to the board. Any questions or comments from any board member? Trustee Morocco.
I probably more procedurally my questions. I do, there's a couple things. I do agree with the position. I think it's an important position, and it's long overdue that somebody's been watching our assets because they've been neglected, clearly. And I think that's great that it's somebody else's job. I don't like the fact that some of the park assets are being taken out of it, because I think an asset is an asset. I don't like the fact that the reason this job is being created is that all the assets in the township were in need of some sort of maintenance or repair, including park assets. So I'm not happy with that there's these carve-outs leaving facilities maintenance in the hands of Parks and Recs people, which is not what their specialty is. I also, and this is where this is not to you, but it has to do with the job description that we're trying to do, is that I don't see that this position is in, that what I'd like to start seeing when jobs are being created is how they align with the classifications and compensation studies that we're supposed to be following. Whether the price range is in the 20%, nothing was provided to say how this compares to other communities and what the pay scale is there, so that when we create this position, whoever we hire, whether they stay or not, we're competitive with, so I don't have any basis to go off of whether this pay is competitive. I'm not saying it's too high, I'm saying I have no idea what this type of job should pay, because we don't have the compensation study that is supposed to go with new classifications. I also don't know if this position's been this position's been implemented into the non-union handbook that all the employees' identification and jobs are supposed to be listed in. And Dave, I'm not directing this at you, I'm kind of just directing it to the township in whole. But I really, and I don't know if it's HR or whose job it is, but I think that when a job description comes forward, it needs to have three things with it. It needs to have the job description, it needs to have the classification and benefits updated with the added, which then that forces us to have the compensation study go with it, because that has to be part of that. And then that position is put into non-union handbook to protect us on what jobs are non-union and what jobs are union. So I do support this position wholeheartedly. I don't support the way that, I just think we need to tighten up how we do it so that I have the information. And we're having a hard time competing, so it's important to know that we have the price ranges, right, based upon other cities. And I was going through our, and I'm not talking to Dave, I'm just talking to the board. I mean, at least 7, this would be 8, the next job coming up would be 9 jobs that are in our comprehensive classification study that don't have any numbers next to them of what they're worth, of what that job, the competitive rate of that job should be. And we just keep going, information tech manager, budget and operations and analyst, zoning enforcement, television station manager, senior community center supervisor, GIS manager, fire business manager. Those are all ones that are deficient of the information that should be in there, and now we're adding more to it. And I don't, so I think that we need to, every time something comes forward, these documents to protect the future employees' competitive rates and the township hiring practices and the fairness to other employees, that they all be brought together on the MAFE at the same time and be updated at the same time. And those are my comments.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Trustee Tedder?
Thank you. I agree with many of the comments made by Trustee Morocco. I think facilities and grounds maintenance person should encompass all of the infrastructure, because that is the forte of this individual, right? I think Parks and Rec are experts at Parks and Rec, and certainly tending to fields and things like that. But as far as furnaces and plumbing and infrastructure, I mean, he makes a really good point about not diluting the role of this position. But I think with respect to this, and one we'll be talking about in a minute, I think, again, this is really more to the board, is, we had a pretty heavy meeting last night, and it's eminent that we are going to put the pause on a lot of programs, be it the CIP or others, that until we have more clarity about what what the picture looks like regarding funding of police, because when you put things in a hierarchy, I think police protection and what this community values above the things on the table is police protection. And so one could make an argument, I'm not going to say for the next position, but this position is revenue neutral. But at the same time, it sounds like there's a vacancy right now that is saving us from spending that money at a really difficult time. And my understanding too is that this would be the candidate up for consideration is vacating a union position, right?
Correct.
So my understanding is that union positions would at some point need to be backfilled.
I want to clarify something.
Sure.
Trustee Tetters, the position is going to be posted and filled with a qualified person. If it happens to be a union position that comes out of whatever department, I can speak for DPW. If it comes out of the Public Works Department, that position will be refilled. Okay? I mean, this isn't a job, we don't have a name so much on this. This is to get approval for the position to post it. Our intent is to post it internally first and then pick our best candidate. We'd like to promote from within. We don't know who's going to apply for it, but we do want to give that consideration to everybody on there. I don't want to say that this is for, max, and that's not.
Okay.
That's not fair to all the other employees that people might potentially.
Yeah, and I would agree, but I believe Supervisor Fowle, you gave us a name last week, or last meeting, not last week, of the individual that was in line, if you will, to get said position. So I'm not saying you said it, but that's why I even brought it up. And
It was brought up that individual is going to apply. So.
Well, yeah, you can go back to the video, but.
No, I'm just saying.
It was pretty clear to me that this, and there was a lot of discussion about the qualifications of the job being maybe not necessarily commensurate with the expectations, so. But again, I think weighing most heavily merits, shortcomings aside, I think symbolically, we should be waiting until after we have more clarity about what's happening with our police millage.
Treasurer Brown.
On the budgeting, it says that there's no impact on the budget. So if we created a new position to fill, are we saying that we already had money for a new position, which for me, it was not making sense to me because there was so much work put into really cutting back budgets to only what was needed. So if there's no impact, why is there money in the budget for a position that's now created, number one? Number two, because we've been told there's no impact on this year's budget. If we're backfilling the positions it was in, we're still spending the money for the other position that we had. If we backfill that person's role, then how is there no impact on the budget? I still don't.
Yeah, so we had employees that left that were higher paid employees. Those positions weren't filled, so there were savings there. We also had budgeted for a position for an employee that left after the budget. We have not filled that position, and that was a higher rank or a higher level position on the management side. That position hasn't been filled. So that was already in the approved budget for this year. So that's where the savings comes, and this falls below both of those two areas there. We would have savings in there. Or I don't want to say savings, but where we come in, they're already approved
Will that
budget.
management position be filled?
To be determined, but I don't, right now, I'm going to say no. I mean, we are reorganizing some things there, but I can't say that it's going to be refilled right now.
But you can't say that it won't.
No, but again, keep in mind, this is not a general fund position that will be filled. So I know you're saying, for budget, it might be. I mean, staffing requires, money, obviously, to do things. And that's why
So the water and sewer department will only be paying for things when they're working on water and sewer assets, right?
Correct.
Water and sewer won't pay if they're working on this building or park buildings or,
No,
that's gonna be, you'll be back charging the other.
That's what we've been doing
departments.
for many, many years.
Okay, yeah,
So,
okay, all right. I'm still a little, I didn't understand that in the past, that there's a position that's gone that hasn't been replaced, but it's still in the budget. It could be replaced, but not anymore, because now there wouldn't be money for it.
We're still in the black, even if this position, if this is approved, we're still in the black for this year for payroll. There's no impact on the budget, on the approved budget for '26.
I guess the only other thing, and I was looking up because your presentation had been up there, and there's multiple times on there that says it's time for us to sort of put the brakes on things. And it's sort of, when Jim brought that up, it's sort of, what you had in that made me think the same thing is, we're creating some positions, and should we wait till November to see what happens, so.
All right, I'm sorry, you done? Okay. Trustee Hayward.
Yeah, you had mentioned that you went through the process for creating this position. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did?
So the position was run through, it was of HR that did the 2023 study on that. So I called them and talked to them. You know, there's one of the procedures that kind of like touch on what, I'm sorry, I think it was Jim or Trustee Morocco that brought up. How can these positions, you know, we could vet the job descriptions out through them, individual ones, which going forward might be something that we do. And I was going to bring that up. I talked to supervisors a little bit about that. But going through there, this position that we have right now tends to fall into that category that we felt based on that on the report that we had from the 2023 wage study.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I did notice.
Category 3
Yeah.
was in there, and that's where the window was, and that's where the pay scale that's on there on the job description, that is for the category 3 right there.
Okay. But you didn't look at any other, I don't know if any other townships are
Well, and again,
structured this way, so I don't know, but.
Again,
Yeah.
I was trying to answer a lot of the questions that was brought up last time,
Yeah.
and that was one of them that Trustee Morocco brought up.
And you did
so
mention, and I
wanted to
did
do
look
that.
through it, and I did see that there's a 20% spread between the salary range, so.
Mhm.
And everything else seemed to look like you did exactly what you said you did, so that's all, thanks.
Any other questions?
I just have
Can I go first then?
Well, for sure.
Okay. I do want to address a couple things here. One is the job description. You said 3 things. You have the job description, so I think the director fulfilled that requirement. He did go through the rate study and looked at it and went so far as even to reach back out to the authors of the rate study. And therefore, he figured that out and put that together. There's a little bit of it seems like there's a little bit of a struggle here on some of these things when you're sitting there saying, we have to follow the rate study, but then go get some outside township things, because if they come in higher or lower, what do we do with the rate study then? I mean, right now, the rate study is what the board has decided to use going forward. It didn't have anything to do with the outside parts of it, I don't believe. But you're digging quick in your paper, so maybe you'll find something. So that's why we went with the rate study as the truth document. And as far as the pay scale, it did fit within the rate scale. The other thing is that, to Trustee Tedder's point about, I did mention that we need to be careful and fruitful and cognitive of the fact that there are 2 scenarios that are at play right now as a possibility. But at the same token, I did not say that we should ignore our fiduciary responsibilities to make sure we take care of the assets that we have. And as Trustee Morocco said in his opening, that he was happy this position was being filled because there are needs that need to be done to make sure that those are taken care of. And this is the step to do that. At the end of the day, as the director pointed out, if we take a look at the bucket of money and through the attritions that's happened for the labor in his department, we're still in the black even with this. From the union standpoint, we're still +1, by the way, on the headcount for the union. Now, they were very adamant they would like to see the 1-for-1 switch again, but just so you know, we did end up sitting down with the president and the vice president of the union, had conversations about this, how it was being handled, and they said everything was fine. I don't want to put exact words in their mouth, but they came to the office, we had a conversation, and they said they were all good with everything. So I think that from the 3 that you pointed out, I think we actually did live up to that. I think the director did go through and went a little bit beyond by actually going to GovDoc HR to talk to them. And I do believe that it is a position that needs to be filled. As far as the carve-outs go, I think there's certain skill sets that, and certifications that warrant that division, not just, and I don't believe, and I will stand corrected if I'm wrong, I don't think that the Parks is saying that they're gonna maintain the furnace or the roof on their buildings It was more specific to very specific township parks assets. And when we get up for the director, she can go through and do that. But I think we did leave up to the spirit of what you're saying, maybe not exactly the letter of it.
Okay, if I may. So, I know Nancy's here in the back, but, and maybe she could come up if that is allowed, but, what I'm saying is, I'm not, and I had conversations with Dave about this. What I'm saying is that my understanding, and I'm gonna ask Nancy to verify it, is that the compensation study of the other communities and the upgrading to the HR government deal, and I don't know, that's what I'm trying to find out, is it HR's job, who should be here at the meeting saying, we did it, but if the document that shows that we're trying to operate in the 60 percentile is backed up by us having competitive pricing in other communities. So we should, by policy, because we adopted this policy, in my opinion, Nancy can chime in if I'm wrong, every time a job is done, they should reach out to the dozen communities, only takes a minute, find out what those salaries are, whatever it takes, whatever long it takes, put together a report, show us that we're within the 60 percentile of the range of each position, and then provide that document while updating this spreadsheet, because as of today, if we were gonna hire a recreation programmer, these are the guidelines that we're supposed to follow. Now, if this wasn't updated, and someone should be updating these, because I know by requesting the pay and compensation of all the employees last month, that we're operating well outside the 60 percentile in both directions. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to or against any of it. It's just that for for the employees and for our competitiveness, and we've agreed that we want to start the process of hiring and working with people within the 60th percentile of the salary survey data, that the data needs to constantly be updated and be accurate, so that if a job needs to be filled, and Dave's looking for a deputy director in DPW, that he's gonna know that we've already approved that this salary range in 20%, and he has the ability to ask to go over it, no problem, but that's the starting point, and that if we also have adopted a policy that says if somebody's operating under the allowed or market, manageable, that we have a policy of how fast we get them to where they should be. And if they're overpaid, there's a certain percent every year that they can, to keep them in line. So it's more of a fairness and documented policy, so that all board members and employees can see that we're operating within the parameters. Now, if we want to go to the 70th percentile or the 50th percentile, that's a board decision. But we have a policy in place, and I don't know if it's HR or if it's the supervisor's office or whose, but we're not following it and updating it. And I think that it's important that we do and get it caught up now. And then each time we add a job, those documents and the non-union employee book we add the list to it because they're listed. And I just don't feel like it's not really the director's job to figure out whether we're operating within the parameters. It's the data from the, that's part of the study. And Nancy, if I may got any of that wrong, let me know or elaborate,
No, to your point about the comparables, that is accurate. The board made a decision when they adopted that study that they wanted to land in the 60th percentile. GovHR did present alternatives, whether they were 50, 70, a range of those, and the board elected, if I recall correctly, to land in the 60th percentile. That was based upon the comparables of what were considered similar communities. When you look at the job titles, it might not be the exact same job title. It's more of a dive into those actual job functions and those job duties. They might label it as something else. So there is a little bit of a dig. Generally, it would be an HR person that jumps in and gets that comparable information. And the intention was, as you stated, exactly was to make sure that where you fell on the competitive range with those other communities. And then again, all of your non-union positions are listed in your handbook. I believe it's section 100. That would generally be updated as well as that compensation and classification plan as well, so that you stay aligned with the 60% or make a board decision to operate outside of that. And then again, there were discussions about what happens when a position is under the minimum range and when it's over the minimum range, and how to handle those situations as well. So you did get, that was an accurate summary. If I can answer any questions, I'm happy to try.
When we sent this to you, did you look at it and did, with the category that this particular job fell in, did it fall within the wage scale of that particular job?
So I was sent the job descriptions. I was not sent the JAQs, the point factor analysis, or any of the comparable data. The board is within its authority outside of that classification and compensation plan to set compensation as it sees fit. That's your statutory right. It is also within the board's authority to create positions, abolish positions, and change positions. So there is nothing illegal, in my opinion, about the job description. It's a question of whether the HR steps may or may not have been followed, and I did not participate in an analysis of that to see if it aligned with any comparable communities or other job descriptions at all. I just reviewed the job description. The duties align with what would qualify to make it an exempt status, which is what is in there. There's independent thinking, things like that, so it's appropriately labeled as exempt. And then the board is within its authority, again, to set the salary if you agree with what's in the job description, that is well within your authority to do so, as well as to create the position itself.
Other questions, comment? Treasurer Brown?
I don't know if you'll recall, because my recollection's not perfect, Carrie might. We were going to start doing contracts with the non-union hires. And we started doing that a couple years back. Are we still following that process?
There were discussions made to identify certain leadership level positions that would be better suited to have an employment contract upon hire versus the cause level of hire for all of your other non-reps. I know that I have participated in completing a contract or two, but we have not implemented, to my knowledge, a full process or a template on how that will be done on a regular basis.
Well, that does not mean it hasn't been done. We just haven't standardized that process yet.
It does not mean it has been done. It could have been done, and I haven't reviewed the contracts, but there has not been a new policy set in place or a template that's designed or any criteria of how you would determine what, for example, what would be a severance period or what would, those types of things. We have not fleshed that out as far as I've participated in, but certainly there could be contracts in front of the board which would come before this board before they were executed.
Just a question. Could you speak to the benefits of us having a contracted managerial position opposed to one that would, that's just a I don't know what it's called, a regular.
For cause.
Or for cause, because I know there's a.
Sure.
It's harder to dismiss or replace somebody under one contract than another, so.
Absolutely. With an employment contract, you get to define what are the parameters of this employment, what are the reasons for termination, how will we handle it if there is no reason, and all of those things in between, benefits and otherwise. Without that, we fall to the basic labor laws that are in place. Within this township, your handbook provides that an employee will not be disciplined except for cause, which triggers a property interest right in employment, which then requires additional steps related to due process before implementation of any discharge, suspension, demotion, or any type of other adverse employment action. So in the event somebody was perhaps not a good fit necessarily anymore, an employment contract would give the board more flexibility in determining how they would continue or not continue that employment, whereas without that contract, you would need to find cause, meaning that there's been some type of a violation that you have substantiated, and then provided another opportunity for a hearing before you could take any type of adverse action.
So basically, doing the other way, the board has the ability to release somebody. We already would know the compensation package they get. It could
You
just
would
be
know,
that
the
their-
employee would know.
that their goals and objectives don't align with the new administration, whatever. The other way, you gotta prove they did something like malfeasance, misfeasance, then you gotta go through the whole process of whether you had the right to, I mean, it just, in management positions, it seems like, and you've recommended that before, that we move to that model. I guess my question would be, before you answer that, is have you found in other townships, at what level of management do you find that is more beneficial to the municipality?
In my opinion, it's more beneficial to a municipality when we're talking about a leadership role, right? The leader is responsible for executing the vision of this board. In the event that that leader is not of the same mind of the board and chooses to continue to operate their department in a manner that they see fit, but they're still operating within all of your policies and procedures, and they have not violated any, demonstrated any behavior issues, any conduct or performance issues, then there is no cause there, perhaps, to make an employment change. Whereas with an employment contract, it's very clear that it is at will, and we can determine what path would be taken in the event that the employment relationship is no longer beneficial to both parties.
Do you negotiate the severance at the time of hire?
You can, yes. So you could have an operation where you set it up, but in general, you know, anytime an applicant comes on board, if you're saying, okay, I'm going to give you 3 weeks, they could push back and say, you know, hey, I'm leaving this job that I've had for 5 years to come here. I want some security that if things don't work out, you're going to give me at least X, Y, or Z, or whatever. They could certainly push back and negotiate. Ultimately, I would advise that you had some level of template based on what that job is. And then otherwise, this board would be the ultimate decider of whether you deviated from that, because you would, unless otherwise delegated, any type of contract like that would come before the board for approval.
Treasurer Brown.
I don't want to get into a bunch of stuff, prior contracts we may or may not have done, but I do think that we might want to consider having a closed session with the attorney for a little deeper dive into what that contract would look like, if that's allowed to have a closed session to discuss how we would set up a contract. Because we don't necessarily want to do that in public, because we're not talking about any particular position on doing this. I'm thinking more about, as we move forward, to be consistent. Because we did have a contract in the past, but again, I don't want to start talking about that, I probably shouldn't. But maybe that's something, and I'll talk to the supervisor, we could get set up for a future meeting.
Absolutely, a
So the
closed
board could
session.
ask more in-depth questions and get a better understanding. Then we could actually make a decision about how we want that utilized in the future.
Absolutely, a closed session to discuss an opinion about the parameters of, and that would be definitely allowable.
Okay, hey, let's bring it back in. We were talking about a job description here specifically on this one. I believe that there is a need for this position currently, and so I would like to see if there's a motion for this position. Somebody would like to make a motion on it? If not, I will move to approve the facility and ground maintenance manager job description as presented and establish the position within the township grade 3 compensation structure and authorize human resource to recruit for and fill the position. Can I get a second? You gotta be kidding me. Okay.
Okay?
That didn't hurt, and I apologize.
That's not the
I got it.
point.
Okay, relax. All right, next, that there's no action taken on that one.
You gotta be
I'm gonna
kidding
make
me
a
with that.
motion. I'm gonna make a motion on, is there a, what do we call it? I'm gonna make a motion to table the new job position of facilities and ground maintenance manager until we are provided with the compensation study for other communities and how it aligns with it, and that just to verify that the position falls inside the structure of our already approved compensation and classification update. So basically what I'm asking for is I just want to make sure that that we can prove that this salary and this job falls within the parameters of the adopted policy of the board. So I'm not opposed to it. I just want to get the right paperwork for it before we approve it in case the job's too low. If we're putting this out for bid, I don't think it's too high, but if we're putting this out for bid to the very best person to oversee all our stuff, I want to make sure that we're competitive in the township, and I can't make that decision without the documentation.
Dude, can I just address that for 1 second? I know
Absolutely.
you made a motion, but
Well, I got to get a second, I think, and then you can.
Okay. Is there a second?
If I get one.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Did you not do that when we went through the,
So I reviewed, so my suggestion is to address your question, do you want us to take the job description, would GovHR be the entity you'd be satisfied with? We send it to them and have them do the comparison? Because they do it across the country. They're not just.
They do, but if you look in our study that we've adopted, it's all local municipalities close to here that have similar size populations and job descriptions. It's not all over the country. It's who we would be competing against mainly.
Correct.
And I think that I would like I would like to know how we compete with other communities in the area, and there is a list in our study of all the ones that we've used for all of our other ones, so you don't even need to guess at who they are.
Well,
HR Gov did that already.
correct. I when we finish, GovHR does it for the whole country. When they do a comparison for Independence, they will do it with, just like it's in the 2023 report.
Right.
It's comparables to here.
Yes.
They're not gonna like give us a comparison of somebody from Arizona or something like that. Would
No.
that satisfy what you're
Yeah, the one
looking
from,
for?
the one that's from southeast Michigan
Yeah.
that is competitive, so
comparables
that
would
we know,
be-
because that's who we're gonna be trying to solicit. I don't wanna know that a facilities maintenance guy in, what's a township that's similar in our size? I don't know.
Canton.
Canton, okay. That their range is between, 78 and 92, and we're between 65 and 75. And other ones are looking for them, and we're not even in the ballpark of what we're trying to solicit.
I understand. So, okay.
so,
But more policy and job wide, I just want to get that process going, that we're doing that on everybody so that we can be competitive.
okay, so here's a little bit of a challenge for that. And so we're looking for guidance, I'm looking for guidance here.
Okay?
Is that this particular job was not in our rate study.
No, and none are these other ones either.
So they're not in the rate study. So using that rate study is, other than identifying the surrounding communities, is going to be relatively useless. So I think what director's asking for is, how about if we go to GovHR and ask them specifically for this job title and description to do that study with those communities that we have in our rate study, and then have them come back and bring it back and say, here's what would be in that range of the 50, 60, 70 percentiles and the 20%.
Well, I'm going to ask Nancy a question on your question. We don't need HR Gov, right? I mean, wouldn't it, at this point, if we've already done the HR Gov study, we've got the format, we've got the policy created, wouldn't we just, our HR person, go solicit that data?
What happens if there's not another one in
Well,
that group?
Well, then we'd have to reach outside the group, but I find it hard to believe on the ones that we don't have
Let's
this.
keep it focused on the one that's in front of us right now.
Okay, I feel confident that there's a facilities maintenance position in a municipal government of our size, and more than one, because it's long overdue for us. I mean, Dave, you've been in the business a long time. Is this such a unique position that we're not gonna find a comparable? And if there is no comparable, Nancy can, or this is how the astricals get put on this page, saying that in 2023, you couldn't find out what an IT manager made. Well, I bet you can in 2026. And I think that some of these other positions you could find out now too, and that's why this needs to be updated to get the data. I mean, I'm not saying go to HR Gov, but if that's a resource that we have to go to, but I'm saying that we have a policy in place, and that we have an HR person in place. I mean, that I would assume that that's under her job description to provide this data prior to you reviewing it, actually.
Well, through the chair, to answer the trustee's question, the HR director would certainly be able to obtain this information. All public employment positions are available to the public, either through FOIA or just through being placed or a call to their HR department. I would guess that there would certainly be a position that was similar. To that end, the board could approve the position and just withhold approving the actual job description and the salary until that additional data is available if you wanted to get the position created. In my experience, and this is not necessarily legal experience, but there may be a position that has a different title that does all of those same work. So sometimes you have to, pull more than one job description, look in, and it might be a different title that does this work. So sometimes it's not as simple as just calling and saying, hey, do you have a facilities manager? It might be actually pulling their job descriptions or asking for them and looking at the scope of work. But in order to align with that classification study, you would want to look at the comparables, land around the 60% unless you want to change it. And the HR director should be able to certainly pull that information and do it. She's, in my opinion, likely more than capable, yes. Did I
So we had a
answer your
second.
question?
I have a
I'm sorry, did I answer your question?
You did, thank you.
Yeah.
We have a motion and support, so.
Yeah,
any more?
so we need to, do you want to give, in lieu of the fact that we just heard a bunch of stuff, do you want to restate your motion, please? Just so we can, everyone who has to vote on it can understand what they're voting on.
I will make a motion to table the approval of the Facilities and Grounds Maintenance Manager until we get documentation that the alignment to our classification, classification and compensation study and comparison to other communities has been provided to us on the pay scale. And at that time, also update our, when that comes back forward, update our classification and compensation study to include this job description and also the non-union handbook. That's what I got.
Okay,
And I seconded, so I'll second.
yep. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed. Okay, motion has been tabled. It's your turn. The next item on the agenda is a request to approve the Parks and Rec job description, Parks Operation Supervisor. And for this, we have the Director of Parks and Recs, Lisa Christensen.
Okay, so as part of this planned organizational restructuring that we just discussed within the facilities, grounds, and maintenance function of the Department of Public Works, I was able to do a review of our operational structure and the needs of the Parks Division, specifically in the Parks, Recreation, and Seniors Department. So to support this structure and provide dedicated leadership to park operations, I'm proposing the creation of a full-time, non-union exempt park operations supervisor position. This position would provide consistency within the department organizational structure, as we already have a dedicated supervisor over our senior division, over our recreation division. This would fulfill that need over the Parks Division. It would represent an intentional enhancement within our Parks Division's organizational structure, establishing a dedicated management level, middle management level oversight above the day-to-day operational functions currently performed in the division. So upon approval, or if this is approved, then we would plan for the 2027 budget. And of course, in light of what's happened in the last week here in our township and the budget issues that may arise in November, we'd of course be mindful of it. This is more or less putting the framework or structure in place that we could move in this direction by approving this job description, and then it would be written into the 2027 budget if we decide to move forward in that direction, pending what happens with the budget overall, the Parks, Recreation, and Seniors budget overall.
Okay. Any questions from, or not questions, or any comments from the audience? No? Okay, doesn't look like we have anybody else new online, so I'll close public comments and bring it up to the board. Any questions or comments from the board? Yeah, I know.
Why are you looking at me?
Because I know you're saying, let's go.
All right, everything I already said applies this This one I got a little bit more problem with because I don't see this job description relating to your succession plan or your deputy plan. So I do, I also, it doesn't, the pay scale doesn't meet the operating allowance of 20% either, but I don't even know if it's in the right budget. It could be low, it could be high,
Sure,
but the
yeah.
spread's not wide enough, just FYI, to our policy. I've said this before at another meeting, I'm gonna reiterate it. I don't like the idea that you are that you are burdened with cutting grass and maintenance of the park. I know that parks are parks and people think they're the same, but when I look at facilities maintenance, when I look at groundskeeping, I think of the safety path operating out of the DPW. They do their own thing. Facilities mowing, I don't know if Safety Path does the boulevard on Sasha-Bar or not, or who does, but, township mowing, all the buildings are at the DPW, the mowers are they have their own maintenance facility. There's just, I don't like that type of, mechanical thing that you're burdened with having to manage that. And I think there is ability for, the DPW to oversee all of, because even in the job description, it's like, the facilities maintenance guy in the job description isn't gonna touch park stuff like spray park and bleachers and things like that, but I know that's all part of it, so I'm more worried that we're taking someone out of mowing and maintenance and management, which we've had, because I know even, the guys at Safety Path, there's like the head guy, I'm not gonna say who it is, and he oversees the other mowers, and he's also mowing, and I see him snow plowing, and and I'm just worried that we're taking another person out of the field to put them in management, especially when we're worried about budget constraints and if that's gonna affect the budget. So that's one thing that I was, if it stays in parks, I'd rather have somebody in the field kind of overseeing that stuff, but I would really, in my opinion, like to see all of that type of stuff taken off your plate so you can focus on what you're doing, but yet coordinate schedules of events and stuff, which I think we could do with whoever mows it. And there would still be people assigned to the parks, but ran and managed, and the equipment handled, and the trucks, and all facets of construction be managed through the blanket of the DPW, because I don't like the idea that we've got to hire somebody to oversee the construction, mowing and maintenance of parks when we already have a department that handles overseeing maintenance and mowing of everything else in the township. So I don't know how it would work exactly, but I would like that to be considered, that we take that off your plate, and if you don't have a deputy director, which you don't, I'm trying to get, you guys are an award-winning park in programming everything else. I just don't feel like it's appropriate that you also are burdened with grass cutting and mowing and cleaning bathrooms. And I just don't think that's the best place to have under there. I'm gonna just end with that right now.
So if I may,
Sure.
several layers there, so I'll try to
Okay.
touch on all of them.
Covered a lot.
I guess starting with your comments about the succession plan or the loss of a deputy director. So in 2025, when we discussed our budget, we came to the budget hearing, and that was a topic that was discussed thoroughly with the board, knowing that we had a position that we weren't filling at that time. And the board asked me my thoughts on that or how we would move on, and I asked for time to evaluate the department to see where the need was, because it may not exist in a deputy director role. And I do believe the need exists in a dedicated supervisor role over the Parks Division. Like I said before, we have a dedicated supervisor over seniors, over recreation. It's a middle management level position, but they all act in a deputy way, essentially, sort of kind of way, right? They're providing guidance directly to me on their scope, their specific expertise, whether it be seniors, recreation, or parks. I guess to address your comment on the burden of, you don't want us to be burdened with that or me to be burdened of it. I mean, that is our job. This is Parks and Rec professionals, this is what we do. We mow grass, we handle landscaping, we take care of fields, we clean restrooms. I mean, that is the scope of what Parks and Recreation does on the park side. Is it great to have a facilities maintenance department that will complement that? Absolutely, and we're looking forward to that collaboration and coordination of services and resources to work more efficiently and effectively. But to specifically look at the needs of Parks and Recreation, this is where I think it fits in what we need as a department. Any one of those middle management people, that's the supervisor over recreation, over senior center, hopefully over parks, that is the succession plan. If we don't ever add, maybe we grow one day where we can eventually add a deputy position in there, but those are the next in line people. Those are the right-hand people directly to the director. And beyond the cutting of the grass and the cleaning of the restrooms, we're only one of 3 departments accredited in the state. That alone is administrative heavy. That falls on my plate, and then it trickles down to each of those supervisors. And so that is one of the main duties of this new position, to name a few, or on a long laundry list of things. So it goes beyond just that scope, or what you're calling that burden. We don't look at it as a burden. We have great facilities. We have wonderful parks. We just had national advisors from the Washington, D.C. area touring our facilities and parks and telling us that when we compare against our peers and others. So I disagree with you a little bit on that, because that is what we're trained to do. That is what our experience is in, our education, and that's how we look at our facilities and caring for our very well-maintained facilities and parks and programs.
Somebody else? I couldn't tell which first. I'll go trustee Cheddar.
Thank you. First comment to the board, similar to the last position. I think timing is poor, even if it's symbolic to create a position and not fill it. It's another potential proverbial mouth to feed now or in the future. And I believe this would be an aggregate cost imposition to the fund, the general fund. Please address that for me, provide more clarity. Also, I'm seeing that there's an elimination of the park superintendent, but an addition of a laborer position. It seems like the superintendent is like the unionized version of the supervisor. Maybe you can provide some clarity on that too.
Yes and no. So the superintendent is a union lateral, or like the ladder of the union. So if someone starts as a laborer in our department, they would move from a laborer to a maintenance tech, to a senior maintenance tech, to a superintendent, and then cap out at the superintendent of parks. But they're very much still boots on the ground, right? They cannot come out of working hands-on in the parks and focus on strategic planning or CAPRA accreditation or different aspects where we do need the support. The job description you're referring to, where it does show a vacancy for a laborer, that is one scenario that could exist. That if an internal candidate did apply for the position, then we would of course backfill that if that need existed with a laborer, and then the park superintendent position wouldn't be there until someone advanced to that level, per se, because that's the union steps to grow to, based on experience, licenses, certifications, performance, those things that would move that person along. So that is one. So the job description you're referencing and looking at that I provided would be a scenario that existed.
Got it. And again, we talked about this to the board last night, that unfortunately parks would be among the first cuts we'd have to make with terms of discretionary dollars should a police millage not pass. So again, while willing to tender consideration for a position like this, and in accord, with a commensurate wage study, I think the timing is extremely poor, and I think we've been without this position for many years, and certainly we could wait a few months to kind of see how things go.
Treasurer Brown.
She makes, a part of what she's got in here is that she's working on her 2027 budget, which we're all working on our budgets right now. And so I think this isn't gonna be filled till next year.
Correct.
Yeah, so she
Right, I'm
wouldn't-
asking for the
so
approval of the job
she
description.
wants to do it to get budget numbers as to what that would look like. And so maybe we approve this, but request that she come back prior to filling it after we know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the budget's gonna come back anyways, we'd have to approve later in the year. At that point, we get a second bite at this and say, if the millage failed, we'd say, well, we all know there's a lot of things gonna change in the budget. So given that this isn't actually gonna have any activity until 2027, maybe we're okay to move forward on that. And I wanted to say one other thing, and that's, I like what, Sam, you said about, we have two different departments doing these things, as far as cutting grass and that. They're also very different, right? Because, as you said, you have to have certifications to cut the fields. This is the person that's cutting the safety pass does a great job. Whoever that, is, part-time people, we get a lot of them in the summer. But they're not the ones that would be cutting our soccer fields and our ball fields. Those are a lot more technically important about how that's done, right? And there's certifications required. But I still think it's worthwhile, and maybe you guys have already done it, is to have both those departments talk to each other about, is there anything we could do together to have benefit to both sides, whether that's through equipment or, I know I've been over to the parks when he's got equipment, you drive the mower on to lift it, to fix it, and do we have the same thing over there? Or are there things we wish we had, but neither can afford it alone, that maybe that's something we could, that they share, right, as a shared cost? I think that would be good, but I do see why the cutting of the parks is different than the other department, and maybe it doesn't make sense to split them. That's it.
Clerk Newbeck.
I think I'd only mention this post what Paul just said about Lisa and her budget and moving forward. Aren't both of these positions sort of commingled, and they're dependent on, job descriptions were created and some things were taken away from some position and some another, so I don't really think they stand alone. So if we were to go forward and we only chose, let's say, for example, one position, would the job description need to be changed? I think it's just like a package deal, is what I'm saying. The plan is a package, so I think we go forward with a package or we hold on a package. I don't think we can piece it, is what I'm kind of saying to Paul. I know you're asking about budgets, and the DPW wouldn't concern this year's budget, but I think it's all a package, and either we move forward as a whole or we don't.
We did work very intentionally to make sure we were not overlapping the duties, so it was a very clear delineation, but yes, you're right, the collaboration and working together and coordination is essential to make both of them
Just think
successful.
timing right now is unfortunate, but it's not something that we can control, unfortunately, right now. It's.
Trustee Hayward.
I noticed both the positions were rated a grade 3, although the position that you're requesting is $10,000 more on the low end and the high end. And I also noticed that it runs into, actually, it overlaps with your position as far as salary range. And it appears that, this is not directed to you, but it appears that we don't have a policy and procedure for developing a job description. Well, I think that we should have one, and I honestly, at this point, would state to say that we shouldn't be approving any more job descriptions until we have a policy and procedure in place, so it's not put upon the directors or whoever else, that it would go to the HR department and they would have a known policy and procedure to create a job description, so we're not sitting here essentially going through these motions of saying, you're going through these motions of, well, what about this and what about that? We can have the documentation. She comes up and says, this is the job description, it's passed all the policy and procedure here, there's, coordinating documents. And especially what just happened with our last, I don't even know why we're deep into this discussion on this one, to be honest, but just a thought.
And if I may just make a comment.
Yeah.
Our other two supervisor, middle management levels are in that grade 3 category.
Yes.
So it made sense to also include this one in there. For it coming close to, are you referring to the director's salary?
Yeah.
There's still a a large range between the two positions.
I think what you might be referring to, Dave, I'm sorry
Mhm.
to
Go ahead.
interrupt. but
Yeah,
You might be looking at the pay scale from a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it has not been updated. So you have to take incremental
Right.
percentage increases, and then I think the range would be.
yeah, so I don't know what the range starts for your, you know,
Yeah,
for the director's
that's why.
position, but
You're looking at outdated
regardless, the
information.
point is that we don't have a policy and procedure for doing this kind of thing, which is unfortunate, but I think we need to have one. I don't
And not
think-
formally, I did take it upon myself to do a peer comparison study when looking at this position. So I did look at 5 or 6, not specifically the ones listed in the compensation study, but I do have research that I've done on the position, similar titles, similar job descriptions for other Oakland County positions, Parks and Rec positions.
So let me just make two quick comments here. One is that it is a package deal, okay? Because of the way the job functions are moving and they're being pulled out, you can't pull one out and not approve the other one to have a place for it to land or vice versa. So it is considered more, I would consider more of a package deal as well. And that's why the two of them worked very closely together to figure out how to make that so there wasn't that overlap. The second thing, and I think Treasurer Brown made a great point here, is that to the point of this is more of just creating a placeholder. We're not saying that it's going to hit the budget in '26, but it's very challenging to come up with a budget for both scenarios if I don't know what options are available at that point in time. I don't want to be reactionary at the last second to try to figure out, are we going to be able to do this, or are we not going to be able to do this? I want to be able to give the board accurate information showing that if the budget passes, here's the things we would probably do. If the budget doesn't pass, here's the things we probably would do. But this is something that we would put on there to say, okay, this is an option. It does not mean that we're going to suddenly say day one, it's going to impact the 2026 budget. So the idea of saying, let's wait, and I understand where Trustee Tutter's going, is that, we're not saying that we're going to be funding this position today. We're just saying, let's create the placeholder for it so that when we find out about the millage in November, we can then therefore already have had that modeled out and see what that looks like. It costs nothing at this point in time to do that. That's my 2 points. Trustee Morocco.
I want to wholeheartedly disagree that these positions go together, okay? Because that, to me, makes no sense being in the construction business. I went around this township and I looked at most of all the facilities with the building inspector in the township. Most of the buildings were in need of repair. Okay, maybe that's why we have a lot of money in our savings account, because we haven't been investing in infrastructure and taking care of our facilities. But clearly, and I'm not talking parks, I'm talking this building, I'm talking pump houses, everything we own was not being maintained properly because it wasn't being monitored by anyone. And that is the position that we had just previously talked about. Not building stuff, maintaining assets. There hasn't been anybody focused on maintaining assets, and now we've brought that to the forefront with the supervisor. We've gone with all the building inspectors. We've done inspections on the buildings. We've identified everything from trees hanging over roofs to leaky gutters and, electrical boxes hanging off walls, okay? That position is why I've been advocating for it. I don't know what the pay rate is. That was my, but the position has been so needed, and the amount of money that we're spending by letting get stuff so bad that it needs to be replaced instead of maintained will help to pay for that position itself. Now, in my opinion, I don't understand how maintaining the parks grass and cleaning bathrooms has always been, that's not a position that didn't exist. That position exists today. We've got our staff in the parks doing it. Lisa just happens to be overseeing it, but that job is being done. The other position is something that hasn't been done and is desperately needed to save money and be a good steward of our infrastructure and our buildings. Because we were replacing wood, we were replacing timber, we were replacing a lot of stuff out there at Brady. That part, Bay Court, because it went a few too many years before it got maintained. Like there's a material asset to that. And that's why I don't agree they're the same. I'm not saying you don't need this person, but the other person we desperately need. And I think that everybody, once we started really getting on it and paying attention, how fast Baycourt Park came around this year before the 250 celebration, you know, how much work got done on the Boy Scout cabin. Having somebody that was just focused on infrastructure, maintenance and repair really brought the parks up very fast. And whoever has that position hopefully will maintain that. But I do think that one exists without the other. One we desperately need. One is more of a luxury item, in my opinion, but moving you towards your vision of where we need to go. But I think that they should not be bundled together. They're very standalone. One is more just functional and management, and the other one is actually a service that we need to have.
And I can only speak for how these go together within, obviously, the parks domain or the parks world. We'll have the knowledge of the facilities that exist, the assets that exist within the parks, and we'll be able to work with this person to weigh the best options and look at what the renovation should be or what it should entail, the scope of the project. And I think the knowledge and resource and expertise that the Parks Division would bring and give to that facilities person will just help make those projects move smoothly and move through meeting the needs of the department, the Parks Department, the programming aspect of it. There's a lot of things within our facilities that we have to take into account, programming aspects and just different things that you might not think about in a typical renovation or a scope of a project. That's just unique to parks, but I hear what you're saying.
Trustee now, Matthew.
I think the package deal wasn't spoke that way, the way you're taking it. It had to do with the organizational chart and how this was split up and divvied up that way. It didn't have to, they weren't saying package deal like this is doing the same thing as that. But I'd just like to get back to the vote, if you're gonna postpone this one or not. Or are we gonna approve this one so it gets on the budget for next year? I'd just like to get back to this job. We already took care of the other one. So this is the one we're working on now and what we're gonna do.
Trustee Hayward.
I just don't see how we can approve this if we've denied the last one for the same reason that this hasn't even, in fact, that one went through way more scrutiny than this one has, with what Dave did with that other one, and this one has less of the standard of what he did, and we denied his, so I don't know how we move forward in approving
I'm
this
sorry,
one.
I think did you say that backwards?
No, Dave's went through, he scrutinized his more, he did more work on his job description by going through the
GovHR.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, and I did not call them like Dave did.
Right.
I heard Dave's feedback, and I myself read through the plan and read the compensation study, read the criteria that each position went through for it to be categorized, so it was.
Well, the salary range doesn't even meet the 20% spread, so.
So let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
If we can, just for a second, because I know it's been brought up a couple times, and we want to make sure that if we're
Yeah.
bringing this back for the third time,
Yeah.
that we have it. When you say the 20%, what exactly do you mean by the 20%? Because the salary ranges in that study,
Yes.
the spread is not 20%. Not one of them is 20%. They're in the teens. If you do the math, take the delta between the high and the low and divide it by the low, it's in the teens.
The recommendation is 20%.
But that's not what the spread is. The spreads are anywhere from 17 to 19%. So that's why I'm a little confused what you mean by the 20%.
The policy that the previous board accepted was that they would be within, there would be a 20% swing between low and high to give us some opportunity inside there. It's just a mathematical policy.
But not what was stated in the actual study.
Well, I didn't go through every single percentage of everything in the study, but
went through
the
like
study
5 or 6 and
outlines
tried to understand.
everything, Dave. You're talking about a policy. I mean, the study outline, I mean, it gives us, it tells us quite a bit in
Yeah.
in our policy, you
Can Nancy
know.
maybe clarify that?
Yeah.
If there's, I don't know, maybe she can shed some light. I don't know.
What was the question?
The 20%, what exactly is that supposed to be?
There are numbers within that study that talk about the range of a position itself should fall about 20%, which would give the township flexibility in making an offer or bringing somebody in at a higher. You have the flexibility as long as it's in the budget to start somebody, towards the bottom, mid, or top of that range.
So
And
it's
then
the high and the low,
It's
is
the
that
high
correct?
and the low of
Correct.
the
Okay.
range, and then there are
But they're not
additional-
20%.
That's the recommendation that's provided for when we create a position, that there should be a 20%. I don't know how GovR manipulated the comparables to try to get some level of a flow. I don't know
Close,
exactly how
but
they
not
did that, but
exact,
their
but that's okay. It's the
recommendation.
spirit of what you're trying to say.
Right, it was 20, and then there are different calculations in there for how, what the percentage should be between the grades. Like from one step to the next. There's a direction in there about how that should be handled as well.
So the step up is supposed to be that delta from the lower to the upper position, not the range within, the salary within there, but
The
you're going
position,
up.
yes, sir, the position.
So in the position, if it's, like we have here, for example, just real quick, this one was, I'm sorry, where'd it go?
There's also.
75 to 85,000.
There's a bunch of.
Is that what you're saying, that should be with?
That's the range.
That's the range on the salary for the job description?
So from the bottom to the top, there should be about a 20% width in the range, according
Okay.
to the classification study recommendations, yes.
So that's not, so that's what we're saying is the problem?
Well, it's just a, okay, go ahead, Paul.
I'm just still trying to give my one
I
question
understand,
answer.
I know, I think I can answer it, and I've been trying to be
Okay.
patient. We don't want to confuse the spreads between the study, which the study are statistical data that we got. We're not saying that's supposed to be 20%, because that's just the data. The 20% is to be reflective of when we post a job, the low to the high should be 20% spread. And it's not tied to that study. Where we are should be somewhere within the study, but the 20% is just reflective of doing a job posting. That's my understanding of what the board wanted to do.
That is my understanding of what the study provides
Within the
direction.
60%. So the job study tells us what everybody's making. We have agreed as a board, a previous board, and adopted a policy that we would operate, try to operate, or at least start to operate, and try to offer jobs within the 60 percentile of the approved pay scale. In that 60%, we're supposed to generate a pay range
Of
of
20%.
20% inside of there. And the reason that this is so important is, and Lisa, you made this comment that where we said, how'd you come up with this number? And you based it on other people in that position. And I don't agree with that, because this is a different position. Now, you've got directors for seniors and travel and all that, and I don't know that this position warrants a parallel just because they're mid-level management and they're making, X amount of dollars. That's the whole reason for this whole HR Gov study, is to find out what is that position worth that you're creating in the area of a municipal government of the same size, and can we and should, to be competitive. Because again, if you have a middle-level manager who's been here for 20 years and she or he is doing something different, just because this middle-level manager is middle-level manager, I don't know how that pay scale aligns. I'm not interested that everybody in middle-level management makes the same amount of money. It's got to be, we agreed as a board that it should be competitive with that job description. So it could be higher than that other middle-level manager, because this department has levels at different points, you know what I mean? It just reemphasizes the need to stay within the adopted policy for bringing jobs forward, and then giving us the option on their qualifications to go outside of it, and then we would have a justification of why we did it, would be documented, and then we hire the person. Is my point.
All right, can we get a motion, please? I'm assuming that we're gonna probably go down the same path. Or do we want to make a motion to accept the job description?
I'll make a motion to table the creation of a full-time, non-union exempt grade 3 compensation structure, parks operations supervisor, job description within the Parks and Rec and Seniors Department until we have the compensation study alignment and that coincides with our adopted policy on classification and compensation, and also bring it back with the updated non-union employee book at the time. And since this is not time sensitive for the hiring of it, I think that would be appropriate to get this one in line also, and then bring it back.
Can I make an amendment to that? And then have that with the job, creating a new job description policy? Because I just don't want to have to come back a third time and suddenly say, well, you missed this.
And update the employee handbook.
And, yeah, so I think if we have that, the job policy on creating a new job, if we have that documented,
Do you want to make that as part of this motion, or just make that as
This is-
something we can say ourselves and do
Let's do a
separate?
separate motion, because this is just a
Yeah.
table.
Yep.
okay.
So this is the table until we meet the higher, till we have the information that we're going to require and do require to align with our already said policy.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
You opposed or you didn't?
I do not. Before we leave this topic, I would like to make an amendment to the agenda to include a motion to be able to ask the board to have the HR department create a policy on creating new job descriptions that can be applied going forward.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Are you going to make your motion? Or was that your motion?
That was kind of my motion,
Kind
but
of all the same thing? Okay.
yeah, we'll just gotta roll it all together.
Thank you, by the way.
Yep. All right, next item is the request to approve discussion and consideration of a pilot Board of Trustees community work session, AKA Town Hall, and this is being brought forward by Clerk Newbeck.
Bringing this before the board to discuss and consider establishing a community work session type of meeting as an additional publicly noticed forum for board discussion and community engagement. The concept stems in part from recent cancellations of regular meetings when insufficient township business existed, and which resulted in a loss of anticipated opportunity for residents to address the board. There are other communities that I have worked for that have done work sessions of some fashion, and some of them have been before board meetings, some of them have been weeks before. They were typically held for, as I put in the MAVE, held for heavy hitters, I would say, things that needed presentations, more discussion. But I'm also wrapping into this the possibility that we can open up the structure for public input, where that maybe they could ask questions after we've presented, and so maybe they'd have some of their questions, answers, some of those things like that. So this ultimately may be something that we would amend the Board of Trustees special rules. I'm not recommending that at this time. I'm presenting this as possibly as a pilot program, that we could try it out for 6 months. And then if it's something we want to move forward with, we could do in the beginning of the year, and then change our schedule to allow for that. So I was just opening it to the board for discussion on if that's something that they would be interested in me trying to pull something together to bring back. But for discussion items, we'd need to discuss possibly frequency and board member commitments. Some of them were later in the afternoon, they weren't necessarily after 5 o'clock, which also, I would say, involved department heads during a work schedule, and then they weren't necessarily involved during the board meeting, because most of the discussion and the input was had during a work session, and then the board meeting itself was more of a structured element where we were just pretty much taking action. So I'll open it up to the board for discussion, but that's some of my ideas and outlines, and that you would be interested to consider it.
Any comments from the audience? Nope, okay, I'll close comments for the audience and bring it up to the board. Trustee now, Matthew.
I just have a question, how you perceive this functioning, because I do remember in years past, we had a huge get-together work session. I don't remember that being open to the public, maybe it was, I just don't remember. In terms of this, I'm only looking at financial part to the taxpayers. Is this above and beyond the meetings were paid for, like some of the committees were on? Would this be maybe once every couple months in place of a board meeting? I'm just thinking about if we're adding extra things that their taxpayer dollars are gonna be paying us for. Is that a good thing, or is this above and beyond? I'm just looking schedule-wise what you're thinking.
Sort of envisioned it more as the town hall where we were more relaxed in a roundtable type session. That's the ones that I had viewed before. It wasn't so clinical as where we were up on the dais and, you know, we all sat together. And departments, consultants, attorneys, that kind of thing. Looking at the schedule, because we have so many boards and committee and commission meetings that meet in the evenings, it is posing itself to be a little difficult. I have discussed this with my deputy. I've also discussed it with the deputy supervisor, looking at the calendar with just some proposed suggestions where maybe we did one a month, possibly targeting the last Wednesday of the month. And then maybe those items we would hit, that would be the ones we would go through in heavy detail, and then the actual action items would be done at the following board meeting, kind of thing, until we got into a rhythm. But, you know, Paul and I and the supervisor are here all day, 10 hours a day, and I don't know what your schedules and how that could free it up. But yes, I would think it would be in addition to what the trustees are already being paid. And I had put that in there as, there were maybe some compensation implications where we may need to do some adjustments. But I think the additional duties of the trustees now, with the number of commitments that they do have, I think that warrants even a second look at the trustees' compensation schedule as well. So I think it would be something that we could do in coordination with that, but there's sort of some steps. So I didn't know if the board members were inclined and interested in it, for me to take additional steps and try to get some more details finite and what your availability was, and sort of thought I'd look at that.
Trustee Tedder?
Sure. Thank you. I support the spirit of intent here. We were just talking last night. One of my asks was that we would at least find a couple opportunities to get in front of residents. And we call it a town hall, call it whatever, but most importantly, it's a listening session. And I know through my own experience, whether it was former state rep hosting two coffees a month, evening, morning, try to be flexible. The coffee and conversations that I host now, the town hall that trustees Morocco, Hayward, and I hosted on the 8th of February was tremendously successful. I think there was genuine appreciation for getting out of this format. As important as this format is, it allows us a greater opportunity to listen and be able to answer from our own perspectives so I mean, to do this in a unified, and that was one of the things that was brought up at that February 8th meeting, like, wouldn't it be fantastic if all 7 board members could make themselves available for something like that? So I really support the spirit of that. Could certainly work through the mechanics of it. I think in talking to some of the trustees, we're not doing this for the money. I mean, I'd give up my Saturday mornings. There's no compensation. The town hall we hosted, there's no compensation, right? These are just, we sit on a number of committees. I'm on Finance Committee with Treasurer Brown. I'm on the Parks Rec Seniors, the residential open space, among others, and again, no additional compensation, so I think we could figure that piece out. I don't need to be paid to do, whether it's quarterly or otherwise, create like an opportunity for us. I'm really, those of us that have day jobs that are part-time trustees, it is more difficult meeting in the morning, but more importantly, I think it's more difficult for our residents, the reason we're having these meetings, to have these anytime other than the evening, where most people can get home from work, take care of family obligations, and actually spend a couple hours with us in that format. So I think more communication is better, and willing to hear what the rest of the board thinks, but I think at least I support the spirit and framework of what we're trying to do here.
I just want to clarify something about the money. I wasn't asking the money on my end. I was trying to get the perception of how it looks to the public. Like, are we adding something else that our taxpayers or our tax money's going to pay them? So I just wanted to clarify that end.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't asserting that at all. And I think most of us are the opinion there are additional meetings that pop up that pull us away from work, and so we have to be here at 4 or 5 o'clock, and that's just what we signed up for. And I think there have been conversations about just making it a straight salary and reducing or eliminating additional stipends, because frankly, missing a meeting for whatever reason, and most of us we're all very committed, we still do our homework, we're still watching the board meeting, there's still work to do on the back end, right, when no one's looking. So I think we can get around that piece, but I in no way wanted to assert that any of us are worried about that.
Okay, I would, you want to go?
Yeah, first I'd like to correct trustee Tedder, it was July 8th, not February 8th.
Oh,
I'm just
yeah, thank you. That was close to my birthday, sorry.
No, and I think that's a great idea to start out with, at least for this year. Waterford Township, for example, does a study session before their meetings. Now, obviously, our meetings are already set for this year, but my proposal would be, as far as we talk about compensation or whatever, if we do a study session, say at 6 o'clock before a meeting, instead of having our meetings at 6, we push the meeting to 7, we have an hour beforehand, and that's typically what Waterford does, except, I don't want to start at 5 and then the meeting's at 6. It doesn't benefit the residents that way. So if we have the study session at 6 and then the meeting at 7, I'm talking next year at this point, that way we are still already here anyway on a Tuesday. It doesn't have to be every Tuesday, but we could pick some select Tuesdays if it works out between now and the end of the year, that this is beneficial to do something moving forward. That's just my thought on that part of it.
Trustee Morocco?
I just want to go on the record and say, I love money, okay? All the work I do for this township funds my golfing, okay? So I never, I'm not saying it has to be full compensation, but I'm not against being compensated. By Thursday night, I'll have 6 township meetings I will have attended this week. Because of the 2 extra ones that we did. So this isn't all that we do,
Are you available Friday for?
Friday I'm golfing. But I agree, I like the idea with Carrie. The Q&A we had, the meeting we had on last night, I mean, the benefits of letting us actually just answer questions and talk, everyone leaves in a better mood. Like, they understand where we're coming from. Maybe they don't agree, but they come a little bit hostile, and they leave understanding what our positions are, why they are, and mostly people get pissed because they don't understand the actual topic until they do. So that's how we really communicate. So I'm all for it. Last Wednesday of the month is one of my open days, so one of the few.
She found it.
Put me down for that if it's happening, and I think that we can work out, an extra meeting here, there's not going to be a big deal, but, you know, I think it's, especially with the millage coming up, we should get on with that and see how it goes, because we've got so much important stuff to talk about with the CIPs. And, I'm not bailing on the CIPs because of the millage. I think that there's things that would better the township, and we know what they are, and we should continue to work on those. And then if they come to fruition, great, but we should be ready to pull the trigger if the money becomes available, you know, and everything goes okay. That's all.
So I am 100% in favor of this. I think that if nothing else, last night was very, I don't want to necessarily say eye-opening, but it was very engaging. And truth be told, I actually thoroughly enjoyed my time here yesterday, going through and having that interaction. I do believe that the Board of Trustees meetings, based by what the MTA says, this is not a town hall meeting. It is not for debate. It's not to be answering questions. It's to be able to conduct the business in an open and transparent form for members of the township to watch. If we can go through, and I think like yesterday showed, if we can go through and give some explanation and more interactive context around some of these regular business items, I think actually the Board of Trustees meeting will go smoother and faster, which I think is more the intent. So I am, and as far as the compensation goes, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that probably 90% of the residents do not have a clue how much time you four non-full-time trustees invest. So to me, the compensation is fine. I'm good with it. The salary, I kind of like that idea. We can factor that into the budget. It's a given. So, I mean, I think that's, again, something that we can easily all work out and come up with an agreement on that. So in this particular case, I would support this wholeheartedly. With that, does anybody else have any other comments or not? If not, then I would like to get a motion, please.
I move to direct the township clerk in consultation with township legal to prepare a proposed resolution establishing a pilot Board of Trustees community work session framework for board consideration. The proposed framework shall address frequency and scheduling, topic submission and selection, structured agenda and participation procedures, public comment and board interaction, Open Meetings Act compliance, compensation implications, and an evaluation period before any amendment to the Board of Trustees special rules.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Motion carried. Carrie gets the fun job of getting this together. Thank you. The next item on there is a request to approve the amendment to the Board of Trustees special rules. This is being brought forth by Trustee Tedder.
Thank you. Kind of fits nicely into the previous agenda item, but I've made it pretty public about my position about board meetings, and that I don't personally believe there is such a thing as insufficient business. There's always a consent agenda. Consent agendas at the very least have a budget or expenditures for us to approve, including payroll, including monthly expenses to attorneys and consultants, supplies, the list goes on, right, within all the respective departments. And so, yes, employees still get paid, bills still get paid. However, it's without the board's review and consent. And so I find that problematic, but most fundamentally, and this really ties into the last item, is that the board meetings serve as a twice-month cadence where residents have come to know, understand, and expect that the very least they're going to have their 5 minutes to speak a grievance, to share important news and information. And so while, yes, this is a business meeting for us to conduct business, I'm staunchly against limiting the ability for residents to miss out on a meeting because of insufficient business. And to provide some context for the public, I'm just going to read the sentence and the ask here in front of the board tonight. So under Article 8, Section 8, Paragraph 4, under canceled regular meeting, the supervisor shall solely assess the individual circumstances when determining whether a scheduled meeting should be canceled due to insufficient business. That's what I seek to strike from the paragraph. Power outages, building failures, inclement weather conditions, natural disaster, or other public emergency circumstances. My opinion, insufficient business does not rise to the same level and the same level of scrutiny that these legitimate emergency circumstances warrant. And respectfully, there was a meeting just a couple months ago where there was business, which was dismissed as not worthy of consideration. That meeting was canceled, by the way. And so, looking back too, when we have a cancellation due to insufficient business within the last couple years here, the packet is double. So, and I've looked at the exhibits and the submissions, and the dates fit certainly a month or 2 months in advance of said meeting that was canceled. And so there is always sufficient business. It's just a matter of, in the eyes, in this case, with the supervisor's discretion, to deem unilaterally that there's not enough business to continue. So for those reasons, I'm asking for the board's consideration to amend the special rules and strike insufficient business from Article 8, Section 8, Paragraph 4.
I'm going to jump in on this one first. To me, I look at this rule was actually adopted, that specific part that he wants to strike out, was actually added in motion 2022-02-018, so that means February 18th of 2022. 3 of the board members here, of the 7, were on that, they approved it, and that motion passed unanimously with the previous board. I believe the rationale there, but we can, like I said, we have 3 of them here tonight, was that while there may be an opportunity for some business, and as you pointed out, and I've absolutely done this, so I'm not going to hide on this, is that there was some item on the agenda, and it wasn't time sensitive. I didn't think it made sense to hold a board meeting for that particular item when it could easily be shifted to the next meeting. I have absolutely done that. It takes at least $2,500 plus probably another 20 hours of work to get those board meetings put together. It just wasn't worth the effort and the time. You wouldn't run down to Detroit to buy a bag of apples at the farmer's market. You would hopefully go down there to buy a whole bunch more stuff. So it's more of efficiency than it was of anything else, and I believe that's probably the reason why that was added in there. I think as far as the cadence go, we just agreed in the last motion that the MTA says that the Board of Trustees meeting is not a town hall. It is not about answering questions and getting into discussions. It's about conducting the business in the public so they can see it. It has morphed, I believe, justly, for it to go into more of the waiting, the public comments section, to have more waiting, because they did not have the opportunity we just passed in the last motion, where they can now have the cadence of knowing they're going to have a better opportunity to have that back and forth dialogue and understanding of those items going forward. As far as the consent items go, yeah, I mean, all these things do get paid, as you pointed out. Sometimes it is after the fact. That is a true statement. And yeah, that might be a little bit of a cost. But that's all I have to say on this subject matter.
Were we going to go to the people before we talked about it?
We probably should. You're supposed to kick me. Is it anybody, you tried?
Tired.
I'm tired. Any comments from the audience? All right, and y'all have my apology on that. You're right, it's been a long couple of days. Any other board comments?
I was one of the board members that did approve that to be added into the Board of Trustees special rules. I was under a different supervisor, of course, and it fit for the reasons we had at the time for insufficient business. When you talk, though, I think you're not remembering, Trustee Tedder, but we have since you've been on the board, made a change to, I'm forgetting which exact policy, but we have made a change to a policy so that when we do miss a meeting, that bills are still paid. Sam was concerned, I think it was towards the end of last year, that bills weren't gonna get paid, vendors, the small mom and pop vendors weren't gonna get their money. We made changes so that those circumstances would be handled. When those circumstances were handled, I don't believe we did it as of recently, but I'm sure the 4 of you trustees will remember, my deputy would then send you the list of bills and asked if you had any comments or concerns prior to us releasing the checks. And I asked her to try to alternate between the 4 of you. The 3 of us are here all day long, so we're able to look at things where you guys weren't able to do. So we were reaching out. That wasn't part of a policy. That was on a courtesy basis, and that's something that I can make sure that is still done while I'm in office, or we can change a policy to do so. But I do think that there's, provisions in place so that things like that are still done, and then we ratify those when we do meet again. So.
Trustee now, Matthew.
This was brought up, I believe, for the fact as a fiduciary duty, because we were getting paid a lot of money for some meetings that lasted 7 to 10 minutes, with not a lot on the agenda. If we do look at compensation, we might change it all, and it is gonna be a salary thing. That becomes a moot point. But right now, we are paid per meeting, and I believe some of that was, part of it is how much it costs you to put on a meeting, how much the trustees get paid for coming, and sometimes it was 5 to 7 consent agenda. Not even, we would have nobody in the audience sometimes in the summer. And I think that's where it came about, was just a cost thing to see if it's worth it.
Trustee Morocco.
I'll just say that we approved the schedule for the year of our meetings. We make it public to the residents. We should stick to that commitment of what the meetings are. If you can't make the meeting, you can't make the meeting. If there's not a lot on the agenda and you got something else to do, as long as there's a quorum, then don't come. But I agree that we should just stick to the 2 meetings a month. It's only happened a little bit, and then I think that we do a disservice the next meeting. That one meeting, we had over 700 pages of information to have at one meeting. And then by the time it's 10 o'clock or 9:30, you're 500 pages in, you're burned out, you're not putting that kind of effort into those agenda items that you would if it was, a little bit less of a load. So, that's another variable, I think, for just overloading what we do, and especially those of us that have full-time jobs that work, we only have from Friday night when we get out of work till Tuesday at the meeting to go over all of this stuff, and sometimes meet with people, ask questions, so, it is, having that overload at the next meeting was the biggest deterrent for me of canceling a meeting. It really was a burden to have to jam it all down into one meeting, I thought. So I support the motion.
Just, thank you. Just to recap on a few things, trying to be eloquent about this, but I think being matter of fact, looking back historically on previous boards, I think the number of cancellations for insufficient business has rivaled the number of cancellations in the number of years past, and I invite the board to to do their own homework on that. So I just found in my opinion, a kind of startling trend here. And then we come back the next meeting, and to Trustee Morocco's point, end up with a 700-page packet. And that's fine, but it's pretty clear that there was sufficient business to fill the void, and, you know, we should have had a meeting so that we could have appropriate amount of time to handle the township's business, because the burden doesn't go away, whether we have one meeting a month or 2 meetings a month. The volume of business remains. I also want to assert that insufficient business is not an emergency circumstance, and it's improper to be placed alongside emergency circumstances. And I've been advocating for a long time. I do find it absurd that trustees are paid by township board meeting, and that's the only standard through which our time is measured. Again, a lot of us freely do give away weekends and evenings to make ourselves available. So I think as a side, that should be addressed, and it just a flat rate, or at least reduce significantly the stipend through which special meetings are achieved. So if it's about money, it's really easily solved from that perspective, because again, we all give freely to the other subcommittees and special groups and task force. We're all chairing a capital improvement plan. I think I've had at least 6 dozen meetings with my work group. I've met with the superintendent of Clarkston Schools twice, the director of the library. There's a lot that people don't see that the 7 of us do behind the scenes. So all that being said, that's a little tangent on advocating for just a flat rate, and which again makes it even more compelling that we maintain that every 2 weeks that the residents of this township, as Trustee Morocco asserted, these are posted in advance so everyone knows throughout 2027 that these meetings are going to be held, and they stand larger than any one of us. And while I think it kills me if I'm on a work travel event, to have to miss a meeting, I'm watching it on YouTube. I watch it from a hospital bed on YouTube. We're all committed people here, and so I just think the residents deserve that predictable, established 2-week cadence, and I don't think that's too much to ask.
Just for the record, 2 meetings have been canceled since my tenure, and that's it, for lack of business.
Can I make one quick comment?
Sure.
According to the HR government report, that were guidelines that did a study on trustees' compensation in all of the communities of our size, we were in the one of the lower percentiles of what we charge as a service to it. So
Okay, that doesn't really have anything to do, it's a small part of it, but
I know,
I think
but
we all,
they
as
were
a
throwing
board,
it out
agree
there.
that, and I think I even made the statement, the 4 of you put in a ton of time beyond what you're seeing from a direct compensation standpoint. But there's also soft dollars involved, where there's a lot behind the scenes that not only does the 4 trustees have to do, but Carrie's department and all the other department heads and everything else have to do to get ready for these meetings. But, okay, I think we've kind of flushed this out, unless somebody else has anything. All right, so I guess we're looking, sorry. Raise your hands a little bit more. My peripheral vision is not as strong.
So I'm assuming that you said 3 people on the board voted for it. I guess I'm probably one of those.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think people who sit at this board, you ought to have the ability to change your mind about how something's voted on. And I'm not gonna try to explain how I voted 4 years ago. That was a different board, and in fact, I had not really remembered, and I thank you, Carrie, for pointing out what that board's desire was. And I voted yes because of the comments made by those board members. And so I can just as easily, based on the comments that have been made tonight, and hearing back from some folks in the public who support that other position. To me, if there's any concern by anyone that we're canceling the meeting, to me, that's just an easy call. We're not gonna do it. I don't wanna do it. I just don't wanna do it. Even if there's not a lot of business, I'm gonna err on the side of not having them canceled. So,
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
I move to amend the Board of Trustees special rules to remove from Article 8, Rule 8, Section 4, to strike insufficient business from the list.
Second.
Can I get a roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Hayward.
Yes.
Trustee Morocco.
Yes.
Trustee Nalamafu.
Yes.
Trustee Tedder.
Yes.
Supervisor File.
No.
Clerk Newbeck, no. And Treasurer Brown.
yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. All righty, the next thing on there is a closed session. This is to review a legal opinion pursuant to MCL 15.268E. And can I get a motion to go into closed session?
I'll move to enter into closed session for the purpose of discussing a legal opinion regarding pending litigation pursuant to MCL 15, my glasses on that, .268E.
I'll second. And at 8:30 PM.
All those in favor?
It's a roll
Aye.
call.
Aye.
Excuse
Is this a
me.
roll call?
Yes, it is.
Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Got to be a roll call.
Trustee Morocco.
Yes.
Trustee Nalamafu.
Yes.
Trustee Tedder.
Yes.
Supervisor File.
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown.
Yes.
And Trustee Hayward.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any last comments from the board?
You skipped
Oh,
item
okay.
N.
I don't have the agenda for me, there we go. Communication, future agenda, items, reports, fire department, March 2026, fire department, April 2026, building department, July 2026, planning commission, June 11th, 2026. Board member comments?
Yeah, forgot to mention this earlier. I know no one's paying attention at home, but perhaps for those on YouTube. Coffee and Conversation, August 22nd, 8:30 at the Carriage House. 8:30 Carriage House, Coffee and Conversation, August 22nd.
Okay. Anything else? Trustee Hayward?
I just wanted to thank you for adding to that motion regarding the policy and procedure for creating job descriptions. I don't think that we are the proper, so what happens is we get a job description, it comes up here, and we end up being the policy and procedure of how it should go, and I think it makes it a lot easier for us to just come up here, have our documents, look at it, and say, this looks good.
Yeah, and I think it's, makes
Yes.
it.
But I just want to thank you for adding that. I
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It'll make it easier on other people too,
Yep.
to make sure we don't have to keep coming back up again. Any other comments?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
You don't need these, I'll